A regular headline now in the trade press is creativity in crisis as
Yeah.
a result of programmatic. In other words, if you like, the reckless spewing out of advertising across the internet indiscriminately. But because it works, marketers now don't have to think about creative product. They can just use programmatic. So is creativity in crisis?
No. You want me to say more? No. Look, I think the good news about the death of the third-party cookie is going to do for that kind of lazy retargeting that you're talking about. So Criteo built a whole business worth billions on. You go to a website, you go to John Lewis, you look at a desk, it drops a cookie on your browser. You go to the Facebook app, it looks at your cookie and serves you an ad, right? It's like, but you can't do that in future. So that kind of, and by the way, that retargeting would lead to like a 30% repurchase rate because you haven't yet bought the desk. So they like harassed you till you bought the desk. And by the way, even when you bought the desk, they continued to harass you because they didn't drop a cookie saying you bought the desk. So that's why people find it irritating. I think the other thing I'd say is that we spend so much time, I said this before, worrying about programmatic media. We don't worry about all the creative that sits in that programmatic media. And that will be my challenge to the creative community, which is you've got all these media people with all this data and all this insight, and are you using it to tell relevant stories in interesting ways? And one of the problems is that we're buying 65,000 audience segments, but we've only got 4 pieces of creative work to deliver to them, right? So maybe we need to have fewer audience segments and more pieces of creative work.
Well, yeah,
so,
I mean, you're pushing all my buttons, I have to say, at the moment. I work with a company called Adlib that is doing exactly that. And there are all these new companies. You mentioned Criteo a moment ago. I mean, how do you see the advertising business evolving? There are all these new names. There are all these new organizations who are looking at advertising with a totally different perspective.
Yeah.
So how do you see the evolution of advertising?
Well, look, I think that creativity will remain important, but data and technology are increasingly important enablers of it. And as a creative person, you have to understand the potential of those two things, to allow you to do better work. And look at the creative departments that have been built up inside Facebook or built up inside Google or inside a lot of these media owners. They're not like the creative departments that would have existed in a newspaper or a TV station or Sky. They're hiring proper people with big budgets, and they have unlimited funding, don't they? Now, I don't know, they always do great work, and I don't know how many clients want to have a creative idea by channel, but increasingly, an idea that works on Facebook is different from an idea that works on TikTok, it's different from an idea that works on LinkedIn. So we are going to have to think about how our ideas resonate much more in these platforms. And so media and creative, I'm sorry to say, are going to have to work much, much more closely together in future than they have done in the past.